My wife, a high-powered CEO, ditched me at the airport with a smug smile as she boarded a private jet with her friends. She assumed I'd be groveling for her to come back. Instead, I boarded a flight to New York without saying a word. Half an hour into her flight, she opened a letter that drained the color from her face. Minutes later, my phone started buzzing 231 messages, all begging me to stop. You'd think that being married to a high-powered CEO would come with some kind of warning sign when things start to fall apart. But it didn't. Not at first. Janet and I had built a quiet, steady life together. She was sharp, magnetic, someone who could own a room with her confidence. People admired her. And I did too. She worked hard, climbed the ranks at Global Connections, and eventually found herself managing international marketing campaigns for elite clients. The New York Knicks. The Chicago Bears. Big names, big pressure, but she wore it like a second skin. I was proud of her. I supported her. I never doubted her loyalty, not until the day I walked into her office unannounced. It was just a lunch surprise. A bouquet of tulips in hand. Something simple to brighten her week. But when I opened her door, I didn't expect to see her standing close, too close, to her boss, Ian. He had that kind of smug charisma you can smell on a man. Older, wealthy, British accent, married 3 times. The kind of guy who believed fidelity was optional if the salary was high enough. She laughed at something he said, her hand brushing his arm. A giggle I hadn't heard in weeks. When she saw me, her posture shifted awkward, caught. Introductions were made. Ian smirked as he extended his hand. "So you're the little husband," he said. That was all I needed to know. No respect. No boundaries. After that day, tension started to build at home. She stopped mentioning Ian. She was always texting, always busy. But then she asked if I'd mind if she had dinner with him, just dinner, before he flew back to London. Her tone casual, her words laced with justification. He's married. It's harmless. Just one night. I saw right through it. And I said no. Flat out. I told her if she went, she was walking out of our marriage. She chose him. And so I walked out. The next few days were a blur. Her messages came fast, then desperate. She swore it was all a misunderstanding. Said she loved me. Said Ian was just a one-time thing. But the damage was done. Not just by her actions, but by the contempt she showed for my intelligence. I stayed away. Slept in a motel. Sat in silence with the weight of 1,000 thoughts pressing down on me. But it wasn't until 2 nights later that I learned the full truth. I unlocked her phone while she slept. Anniversary date, she hadn't even changed the passcode. What I found was unforgivable. Text threads between Janet and her friends. Not just plotting an affair, but planning to drug me. A pharmaceutical-grade sedative. A spiked glass of Crown Royal at a company party. They had it mapped out like a heist. Get me unconscious. Sneak her away with Ian. Let her come back to bed hours later, pretending nothing ever happened. I read it all. The plans. The cover stories. Even her excitement. And right there, in that moment, I knew I had 2 choices, break down or rise. I chose the second. So I started planning. Over the next few days, I made phone calls. I gathered evidence. My Uncle Bob, a retired cop. 2 army buddies who owed me favors. We didn't just react. We crafted a counterplay. A reckoning. She thought I'd be the victim. But I wasn't. I was the storm. And the night of the party, where she thought I'd be passed out in a drugged stupor, was the beginning of her unraveling. The night of the party, I played my part like a seasoned actor. Janet looked stunning. I'll give her that. Black dress, heels, flawless makeup. Her smile was warm. Maybe even a little too perfect. I knew it wasn't for me. She didn't dress like that for her husband anymore. No. Tonight she was putting on a show for Ian. The same man who mocked me to my face and put his hands on my wife while everyone looked the other way. "You look incredible," I said, trying not to choke on the words. She beamed, kissed my cheek, and said, "It's all for you." I smiled back, knowing full well that in a few hours, she'd be climbing into another man's bed. We arrived at the Hyatt ballroom to a crowd of suits and polished smiles. I scanned the room, spotting familiar faces, and one in particular. Ellie. She wasn't just a friend of the family. She was a former cop and had eyes like a hawk. Her job tonight was simple. Make sure I never drank the real poison. The plan from Janet's side was almost laughable in its confidence. Marcia, one of her friends, was supposed to offer me a spiked drink, a glass of Crown Royal laced with a powerful sedative, something that would knock me out cold and erase my memory. They thought I'd fall asleep in a hotel room, never knowing what happened while I was unconscious. but I was wide awake. As expected, Marcia came over about an hour in, laughing too loud, holding 2 drinks. "Brian, I brought your favorite," she said, eyes twinkling. I nodded, played dumb, took the glass, but didn't drink it. When she turned to chat with someone else, I walked away from the table and found Ellie. We swapped drinks in a second. Mine now held water with a splash of whiskey. Hers? Evidence. Then I went back, took my seat, and waited. Janet was on the dance floor with Ian, of course, his hand on her lower back, her lips close to his ear. She laughed, twirled, leaned into him. I watched the show from the table, feigning a dazed look, slumping in my chair as if the drug was taking hold. Soon, they'd believe I was unconscious. And then it began. Gail and Marcia returned, tried to wake me. Janet leaned over, whispering, "Honey, are you okay?" I could feel her breath on my cheek, smell the perfume she had chosen for another man. I didn't open my eyes. "He needs to lie down," someone said. They led me out of the ballroom, giggling nervously, guiding me to a hotel suite already reserved for me. They thought they were carrying out the plan to perfection. They undressed me to complete the illusion, just far enough to keep up the lie. And I listened, heard Gail murmur, "Janet never said he was this impressive. If she dumps him, I take a turn." They laughed and left. As soon as the door shut behind them, I stood up, stone sober. Checked my phone. 10:30 p.m. Janet and Ian had slipped away 15 minutes ago. Room 1722. I washed my face, dressed, and reached into my duffel bag for what came next, brass knuckles. My heart was pounding, but not from fear. This was the moment I'd waited for. The payoff of weeks of quiet rage. At 10:45 p.m. sharp, I stood outside room 1722 with Uncle Bob, Craig, and Jimmy, 2 Army brothers who had seen darker nights than this. Bob knocked 3 times, badge in hand. "Sergeant Connor, NYPD. We need to speak with you. Emergency." A pause. Then Ian's voice. "Who is it?" "Police, sir." "Open the door." Click. The door creaked open. Ian's face appeared, puzzled. And then Craig and Jimmy rushed in. Ian never stood a chance. They pinned him to the wall in nothing but a sweat-soaked sheet. I stepped in behind them, camera rolling, capturing every second. On the bed, Janet screamed and grabbed the blankets to cover herself. My voice was calm. "Smile for the camera, sweetheart." Janet gasped. "Brian, what are you?" "Documenting the truth," I said, turning the lens toward her. "For the courts. For the children you'll never have with me. For your boss's wife. For everyone." Ian sputtered. "You can't. This is illegal." "Save it for your HR department," I said, stepping closer. "Oh, and by the way, I never drank your poison." The look on Janet's face then, it was the moment I'd built everything toward. Horror, regret, powerless panic. She wasn't in control anymore. Her plan had unraveled, and the man she thought would be asleep and forgotten had just walked into her fantasy and turned it into a nightmare. That night, I didn't touch a single hair on their heads, but I left with all the ammunition I needed, because the next part wasn't revenge. It was justice. The morning after I exposed Janet and Ian in that hotel room, I was already 10 steps ahead. They didn't know it yet, but the fallout had just begun. I didn't go back to our house. I didn't answer Janet's frantic texts. I didn't shout or cry or beg. I stayed silent, calculating, focused. You see, Janet had spent the last few weeks treating our marriage like an inconvenience, something to step over while she chased thrills and career boosts. But I hadn't been idle. Not after reading those messages and seeing how far she was willing to go to betray me. I had copies of everything: texts, videos, emails. I had already met with my lawyer, who helped me draft what I now consider the most valuable document of my life. The letter. That letter didn't beg her to stay. It didn't ask her why. It didn't even express anger. It was colder than that. It was composed, brutal, and efficient. Inside the envelope, along with that letter, was a certified copy of our divorce papers, filed under adultery. A list of her belongings already packed and sent to a storage unit. The address. The key. And a message from my attorney instructing her to cease all personal contact with me going forward. Legal protocol. It was all prepped, sealed, and waiting. I found out through her assistant, innocently enough, that she had a girls' trip planned that weekend. A private jet. Destination, Cabo. A champagne-fueled getaway with her marketing team, the same friends who helped her plot against me. Perfect. I made sure the envelope was handed to the flight crew with specific instructions. Give it to Mrs. Janet Collins 30 minutes after takeoff. I arrived at the same airport an hour earlier, carrying nothing but a small duffel bag and a one-way ticket to New York. I didn't look back once. As I boarded my flight, she was stepping into her fantasy. Sun, sand, freedom. And then the plane took off. 30 minutes in, she opened the envelope. I didn't see it, but I've imagined the scene 100 times. The way her fingers peeled back the flap, expecting maybe a love note or some sentimental surprise. And instead, a letter that began with, Janet, by the time you read this, I will be gone, and so will everything you took for granted. That was the moment the color drained from her face. Her friends probably leaned over, asking what was wrong. Maybe she tried to laugh it off. But I know my letter. I know it burned. Every word chosen to pierce her illusions. I included screenshots of her messages, her friends' involvement, the planned drugging, everything. I told her the cameras in the hotel hallway caught her and Ian slipping into that room, timestamped. I told her about the voice memo from the night I confronted her about Ian, how I'd been recording since the moment things started to go south. I told her about the lawyer, the lawsuit, the alimony she wouldn't get, the professional ethics complaint already submitted to Global Connections with supporting evidence attached. And at the bottom of the page, this is not vengeance, Janet. This is consequence. 10 minutes after that letter was opened, my phone started buzzing. Messages, missed calls, emails. The first few were angry. How could you do this? This is private. You're being dramatic. But then they changed. Became frantic. Please, Brian, talk to me. Let's fix this. Don't do anything stupid. And then, finally, the one that made me smirk. I didn't mean for it to go this far. She thought I'd be shattered, that I'd crumble. Instead, I was at 30,000 feet, sipping black coffee over Manhattan, feeling weightless. I didn't respond to a single message. Not then. Not ever. She came back from that trip to find her world disassembled, marriage ended, reputation unraveling, and a digital trail of betrayal she couldn't erase. And the best part? I didn't say a word. I let my silence do all the talking. They say people only show their true colors when they're cornered. Janet, my once graceful, self-assured wife, fell apart like glass under pressure. By the time her jet landed back from Cabo, the letter had done its damage. She'd gone from queen of the conference room to a ticking time bomb in heels. I heard from a mutual friend that she locked herself in her hotel room that night and didn't come out until the next morning. The text messages had stopped by then. Her silence wasn't peace, it was strategy. She still thought she could fix it. I beat her home by 2 days. During that time, the house was emptied of anything that had her scent. Her closet? Packed and moved to a storage unit. Her photos? Off the walls. The locks? Changed. She returned to a front door that wouldn't open and a note taped to the glass. Contact my lawyer. You don't live here anymore. She called. Left voicemails. Sent long-winded emails that started with, I made a mistake, and ended with, you can't just erase me like this. But I could. And I had. And the thing that truly broke her? It wasn't the divorce papers. It wasn't the lost house or the lost title of wife. It was what came next, the exposure. You see, I didn't just want justice. I wanted the truth to breathe. And the truth has a way of finding the light when you open the right doors. I uploaded the hotel footage, the audio recordings, the screenshots of texts planning to drug me. I sent them, not to the tabloids or the press. That would have been petty. No, I sent them to HR at her company. Global Connections had a strict ethics policy, especially regarding executive misconduct and illegal behavior. Drugging a spouse to cheat with a superior? That doesn't exactly fit the team-building culture they preach. Her boss Ian? Gone. Quietly removed. No press release. No fanfare. Janet? Placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. I got that bit of news from an anonymous email address a week later. Attached was a clip, a recording taken by a colleague during a team Zoom call where someone had confronted Janet live, asking, "Is it true you tried to drug your husband at the year-end party?" She froze, mumbled something about misunderstandings and malicious lies. But her eyes, I knew those eyes. She was unraveling. Then came the viral moment. Apparently, one of the party guests had taken a video during the Hyatt ballroom scene. The very moment Ian humiliated me with jokes, and she laughed alongside him. Someone uploaded it to social media with the caption, CEO's wife laughs as her husband gets roasted by her boss. Hours later, she disappears with the same man. Hashtag CO scandal. It caught fire. People dissected it frame by frame. Her laughter. My reaction. His arm on her waist. By the next morning, Twitter had picked it up. And LinkedIn. And Reddit. I didn't post it. But I didn't stop it, either. Because here's the thing about public image. Once the mask cracks, people don't want to fix it. They want to watch it shatter. Her carefully curated professional persona began collapsing under scrutiny. Clients asked to be reassigned. Colleagues started ghosting her. A whisper campaign in the company swelled until it became a roar. I was told, through back channels, that she'd be encouraged to resign before the quarter ended. And just when I thought it might quiet down, she came to the house. Or tried to. I was in the backyard, clearing out her old flower beds when I heard pounding at the front door. Her voice, strained and hoarse. "Brian, please. We have to talk." I stepped out onto the porch, didn't open the screen door. "Leave," I said. Her mascara had run. Her blouse was wrinkled, like she hadn't changed in days. "Please," she begged. "Don't do this. We can fix this." It was a mistake. "No," I said. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something cruel in a fight. What you did was intentional. What you planned was criminal. She stepped closer. "I was stupid. I was greedy. But I love you. You're my husband." I laughed once, short and cold. "You're confusing comfort with love." Then I handed her another envelope. Inside, her resignation letter, drafted and ready to sign, along with a signed confession of the drugging plan. Not to use against her, unless she forced my hand. "Take what little dignity you have left," I told her. "Sign it. Walk away. Don't make this worse." She stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. Then she took it and left. The next day, she submitted her resignation. Global Connections issued a bland statement about pursuing other opportunities. And me? I stood in the kitchen, made myself coffee, and for the first time in months, the silence in my house didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. I didn't hear from Janet for weeks after that final encounter. Not directly, anyway. Oh, she still hovered, like smoke in a house that had already burned down. Her name popped up in articles, some speculative, some factual. Former CMO resigns amid ethics probe. Unconfirmed allegations surrounding drugging plot. They never named me. They didn't have to. Anyone close enough knew who the accountant husband was. She didn't return to the corporate world. Couldn't. Word had gotten around too fast. The kind of scandal that stains your LinkedIn page even after you hit delete. I heard she tried launching a startup, something in women's leadership consulting. But investors pulled out once the screenshots from that party started circulating in niche business forums. The internet doesn't forget. Especially when you tried to poison your spouse so you could sleep with your boss at a corporate function. The last bit of real news I heard was that she moved in with her sister in Nevada. Burned through what savings she had. Tried therapy, maybe even tried apologizing to old friends. But shame doesn't negotiate. And it doesn't go away just because you whisper, "I'm sorry." As for Ian, divorced again. This time by his fourth wife. Apparently, she found the footage too. Her lawyers were far less restrained than mine. Meanwhile, I reclaimed my life brick by brick. The house no longer echoed with her footsteps. I remodeled, ripped out the kitchen she picked, painted over the neutral gray walls she insisted on, and replaced the white marble counters with solid oak. Warm. Earthy. Something real. I started waking up early again, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I reconnected with old army friends. One of them, Craig, the same guy who pinned Ian to that hotel wall, helped me fix up the backyard. We built a fire pit. Saturday nights, we'd sit around it with scotch and silence and the kind of understanding only forged by betrayal. Work became my sanctuary. The numbers never lied to me. But healing wasn't linear. Some nights, I still heard her voice in dreams. Sometimes I'd wake up thinking I heard the front door open. Ghosts take time to fade. The worst part? It wasn't the betrayal. It was the rewriting. In the weeks that followed the scandal, she tried to spin the story. To friends. To family. To anyone who would still listen. She said I was emotionally distant. That I left her no choice. That Ian was a mistake she made during a time of vulnerability. No mention of the drug. The planning. The laughter as I was mocked in front of my peers. No mention of the calculated deceit. So I made sure the truth lived in more than just my memory. I published a post on a private forum. Not Reddit. Something quieter. More serious. I laid out the facts. The planning. The cover-up. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. The thread went viral within hours. Messages flooded in. Men and women thanking me for sharing what they themselves couldn't articulate. Stories of betrayals, manipulations, gaslighting. People finally saying out loud what they'd kept buried for years. I wasn't alone anymore. And I never would be again. And one message in particular stayed with me. You didn't just survive. You made them feel the weight of what they did. That's strength. That was when I stopped being angry. That was when I started living again. It's been over a year now. The woman who once ruled boardrooms and dinner parties with equal ease is now a footnote in my past. A ghost I keep in a locked drawer with no key. Janet tried reaching out once more. It was quiet, no drama, no theatrics. Just a single envelope, no return address, postmarked from Nevada. Inside was a photo of us. Taken years ago. Happier times, I guess. Tucked behind it was a note, 3 sentences long. I lost everything. I see that now. I'm sorry. I didn't respond.